Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
This episode, we're going to talk a little bit about creating a character backstory or background for your character that you're playing. Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
And we're going to talk a little bit about writing character backgrounds and backstories for your character. I, as a DM, started requiring this way back in the game because I started doing LARP, International Fantasy and Gaming Society. And part of the requirements was you had to write a backstory about your character.
Right.
To turn it in, and you had to have it for your lore master. The lore master was the guy who basically ran the game. He was kind of like your DM that would follow you.
Yeah.
And I just thought, when I started doing this, I really liked what depth it gave to me to understand who my character was that I was playing.
Yeah.
So I started integrating it into my characters when I started playing. I would do the same thing. I would create this backstory, this kind of long, their likes, their dislikes, their friends, their enemies, their family, where they've been in life, ambitions, things that, that they wanted to do. It was kind of like, I guess kind of like goals in your work, setting out goals. Now, goals in work kind of stink, but it kind of made me understand who that character was a lot more.
Well, one of the things about it is I thought it was interesting that Delaney as a DM would want to require background stories for characters. A lot of people, they just want to drop in and play. They want to drop back out and get out, because they just, who are you playing? Oh, yeah, my third level archer. Okay, where's he from? Well, I don't know, somewhere. He's from somewhere else. They just don't really want to put any kind of thought or effort into it. So much about role-playing in your game is so elaborate, and that comes from the role-playing aspect of it. The voice you use, the character mannerisms you may speak about, that sort of thing, your friends, your enemies, your background, your family members, your fears, your dislikes, all that. So all that kind of plays into having a character backstory.
Yeah.
And in the past, I've written some really elaborate backstories just because I wanted to do it, because I wanted to write little short stories about my characters. And, it's for the most part, it's always worked out.
Yeah. And
sometimes it's worked into the storyline, the overall storyline. And so, you can create little plot hooks or little side quests based on, finding your lost sister or making up with your mother or becoming the leader of your tribe, that sort of thing. So those are, requirements that Delaney would talk about. Is like, I want to see that kind of stuff in your backstory because I want to get to know you as a player character so that I can tell how we're going to tailor this story.
Yeah. So it allowed, both of us to kind of really know who our character was and how to play that character.
Yeah.
It was almost a how-to book on who is this person? How am I playing him?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I don't want to do this because maybe they hate goblins, but they don't have anything against orcs. So a goblin maybe they'll charge right into a fight with a goblin because they hate a goblin. But an orc, it's like, okay, not necessarily so much.
Exactly. It's patterns of behavior can come from your backgrounds, and so people would have like, my barbarian. Almost drowned once, and so was afraid of water. So my barbarian is courageous and a fighter and will rage in a fight, but will also be extremely frightened of, say, like an ocean or a large body of water because they can imagine themselves drowning like they did at one time.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing can add it can add these dimensions to your character. However, I will say this. Once Delaney started talking about getting people to come up with backstories, how well did that work out?
Well, for the most part, majority of the players that we've had have come up with backstories.
Okay.
Now, you're always going to get the person that's just like, my name's Bob, I'm a slob, I'm from Poughkeepsie, I like to kill.
Yeah.
You know, to me that's not a backstory. That's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I, as a dungeon master, when a person uses or hands me a backstory, I'm going to read it, as long as it's not this 90-page George R.R. Martin novel that's just so poorly written and edited that I can't read it.
Right.
And I can't gain anything from it. You know, having a 1 or 2 or 3 or even a 4-page backstory is fine. I can glean information about the character, and then I can start using it in my adventure. I can throw things out in there. You know, the last adventure that I ran, Tom had a character whose family, they gave a raven a coin right before the birth, and they brought something that actually helped with the baby.
Yeah.
So later on in the adventure, I kept throwing all these little Easter eggs at Tom about ravens, and he just kept blowing it off. And finally one day he's like, "Oh," it hit him.
Right. Well, I did understand exactly where we were going with that, but now then I begin to realize, oh, wait. That was one of my family's traits.
Yeah.
That they would do. So it kind of worked well within the story like that, and that was really cool. I like making little backstories for my characters. I really do. In our current campaign that we're doing with the new DM, I'm not really sure how far I'm going to go down that road.
Yeah.
Right now, because I'm not really certain how this new gaming system and everything is going to work out. However, normally I would come up with something pretty elaborate, just because I like to create.
Yeah. And I've actually wrote 2 little quick things on both of my characters. One is a tiefling sorceress who comes from... It was kind of funny. I asked the DM what the name of the country was, and he's like, Gek, Generic Evil Kingdom. And I'm like, okay.
That works.
I'll run with that. But then he changed the name to something else, and I put that in there. But, you know, and that's where she's from. She's a tiefling. She's from this world. Now, she's not evil. She has fled from that, because as the way she says that it can both be, it can be a great thing for you to be a tiefling, and it can be a bad thing.
Yeah, it can be a blessing or a curse.
Yeah, you know, because some people are going to treat you worse because, you know, hey, you're different, or maybe you're trying to snooze your way up to the top.
Right.
And other people think, oh, tiefling, yeah, power of the demons and devils and everything else. So she has left that world, and I kind of threw some of that out there, and kind of a little bit of her feelings and how she kind of views some of the other characters that are in the game. Because Tom's got a half-elf bard, and she kind of sees him as this, you know, he loves to talk, and he loves to go out there and try and make money and sell things and kind of promote and try and make everyone kind of make this like circus group that the group is, you know, because they're all different walks of life. And then the ranger that Tom's going to be playing, or not the ranger, but the fighter archer.
Yeah.
How he's kind of quieter. He kind of keeps to himself, but he's really good with, you know, he's pretty good with a bow.
It's just more like a fighter, kind of more of a generic fighter, but still, I mean, there's a little bit of mystery there.
Yeah, and then the ranger that's in the group, you know, it's like, you know, the ranger's kind of quiet, keeps to herself, seems to like animals, but that bear that wanders around with that ranger kind of looks at me like it's going to rip my face off.
Yeah, it's a pretty fierce-looking bear.
So, you know, she's kind of worried about that bear. Not that the bear would harm her, but, you know, a person from society would see a bear, and I was like, oh, bear!
Right.
So that kind of helps me understand who she is.
So these, you know, having little storylines behind your characters is a way to flesh them out.
Right.
To create aspects of them, to frame their sort of characteristics, so that other players can understand what you're doing and you know, where you're coming from with your background.
Right.
It's a way that, you know, the old DM kind of led sort of D&D games, you know, where they were real story heavy, you know, and you had all these elaborate role-playing aspects of different voices and singing and storytelling and stuff like that. That was the tradition of the old D&D games. And maybe we're dating ourselves by saying that we prefer to have in-depth characters to play, because I think a lot of people now just want to show up and just throw down a character real quick, have them get killed or succeed, and go off and do something else.
Yeah. It allows you consistency too when it comes to playing and with the other players. So let's say you have a specific fear, like let's say the goblins once again. Okay, you come up against a bunch of goblins and you wrote in your backstory that you're going to attack a goblin on sight and you don't do it. Well, where's the consistency there?
Right. Yeah.
Did you grow? You know, as you grow in level, maybe things change.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of write that in.
That's part of your story.
That's part of your story.
Yeah.
You know, that you've grown, that maybe you don't see goblins as being as big a threat as you saw them before. And now they're just kind of like, whatever, goblins. Let's take out the troll first, then we'll take out the goblins.
Yeah. One of the interesting ideas is you should work with your DM on your backstory.
Yeah.
One of the things is we've had in the past where people would say, well, I'm from the Broken Lands, and I'm a half-elf. And then Delaney would say, well, I'm sorry, you can't be from the Broken Lands and be a half-elf, because they hate elves over there. And they hate half-elves more so, and you would have never been allowed to even grow up in the Broken Lands. So you can't be from the Broken Lands if you're going to be a half-elf. That's just the way this story, the game scenario was set up. So then a person would have to change their storyline and say, okay, I'm not from the Broken Lands, I'm from the Cloud City. Oh, well, that makes more sense because there's a lot of elves, mountain elves, forest elves that live in the Cloud City, and they interact with a lot of humans, and there's a lot of half-elves there. So it would make more sense to have your story, from an actually an accepted sort of system there,
Yeah.
and with a background. And I don't know. To me, it just adds a lot more depth to the character you're playing.
Yeah, well, I'm a human who's lived in the elven forest. Well, not in my world, because the elven forest won't allow a human into their forest.
Yeah, so, pay attention to the actual, the world you're in, especially if it's a homebrew. Homebrews have a lot of, unusual laws.
I'm playing a drow. Well, I'm sorry, there are no drow. Well, I'm playing a drow.
Well, you're not playing one. You can't play a dolphin either, or a dolphin drow. So
always work with your DM.
Yeah,
talk with them. Say, here's the idea I've got, and your DM will probably say, that doesn't quite fit, but here's what we can do. You can work around it, and here's where you might be from. Kind of tell me a little bit more what your ideas are, and the DM will work with you. A lot of times in my games, I will allow characters to create like a little village or town or hamlet that they might be from. And I'll say, okay, approximately where is that? Okay, it's along the coast. Okay, that's fine. I'll put it right here. Mm-hmm. And that gives them a little bit of input into the world itself.
Yeah, elaborate a little bit more along that line, and then tell me, what's special about that village, and how does it make you special? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Why did you leave that village?
Yeah.
Why did you want to leave that village? Most times in medieval villages, people just didn't get up and leave and go wherever they wanted. There was a rhyme and a reason for what they did.
Yeah. So those would be advantages of having a backstory for a character, but what would be the disadvantages of having that? People actually have to work to make one, and a lot of people don't want to put the effort into it.
Yeah, that's one disadvantage. Or some people like to just start noveling and create this whole George R.R. Martin novel that is just unreadable.
Yeah.
It's not like you're a novelist and making money writing books. So sometimes shorter is better. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a page or 2-page or 4-page max. Because even that starts to get a little bit long and lengthy and everything else.
I'm trying to remember if we've ever had a character or a player in our group who've created some kind of a really huge, elaborate story that we just didn't even want to finish reading because it was too long.
I can't remember. No. There might have been some in my past, but
I somehow have this idea that we had a player one time who wrote this big, huge, short novel about their character. None of us ever bothered to finish reading it or something like that, and then they just dropped out of the group. Not because of that, because no one read their novel, but I think they just dropped out because they were, caught up in something else, or they didn't want to put in the effort to actually play the game, and more they just like to talk about it more so.
Yeah. Other reasons why, you don't want to do it, okay, it does take a little bit of time.
Sure.
It does take a little bit of effort.
Yeah.
But I don't see that as a disadvantage. I think it allows, to me, it allows a little bit of the creative juices to flow. And it's kind of fun to kind of write a short story once in a while.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I can think is if you're just creating like a bunch of one-shots or something, why would you want to have backstories?
If it's a campaign, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like a canned campaign, I don't see there's really any need for it. But a lot of us play in homebrews. And in homebrews, backstories are almost de rigueur. I mean, you really want to have one going because a homebrew campaign, you've got invented kingdoms, invented races, invented areas, invented lands, deities. Flesh it out with your own story to make it fleshed out, to make it a more robust campaign.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we're going to end this episode of Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
If you use backgrounds and backstories, tell us why you have that, or if you don't like them, why you don't like them.
Yeah.
Let us know. So anyway, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, spread the word, ring the bell. That gives you a notification. You can follow us on Discord. The address will be right in here. Follow us, send us an email if you've got an idea for an episode. We're we kind of sometimes feel like we're trying to pull ideas out of our hats sometimes, but then again, we've been kind of really busy and stressed out about a lot of things going on. So anyway, may all your adventures be epic.
And keep on rolling.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.